So this little plant that I have here is called Ruschia uncinata, and uncinata just means that it's hooked, and you could see here that it has these little hooks on, and which is referring just the type of the leaves that this plant has. Now this is actually a mat forming succulent and gets really beautiful bright kind of fuchsia pink flowers. Pink, like it's kind of like pink bordering on purple flowers. And I originally picked up some of these. I get these for container planting because they kind of give me a little sense of, they look at least initially like the Crassula muscosa that I like to do in my container plantings of my succulents. So this one is actually not going to stay in this pot. It's actually going to go into one of my container plantings for that reason. And a lot of people who have rock gardens, who have the climate for it, will actually grow this plant, and it's a really lovely, like I said, mat forming plant. Very easy to propagate, so you could actually just take little cuttings of this, drop it in on your substrate, and it'll actually start to grow. You'll also notice that I have this kind of like rockier succulent substrate here, and I've been converting a lot of my succulents over to kind of a little bit more of a gritty, porous medium, especially ones that are in more native habitats to kind of like rocky habitats like this one. So this is actually native to kind of the Cape Provinces up through Namibia, and it does grow in kind of a little bit more rockier conditions. And if you just do a succulent soil, I mean, that should actually be fine, but I just like to try to mimic it as much as possible with, you know, what houseplant owners have at their disposal. But this one actually flowered, not this one in particular, but the other one that I have in my container garden actually did flower last year, except it wasn't really that prolific because like this, it's just a little cutting. And like I said, it will just start to spread over time. So if you give it the space, it will start to spread. Now this can be subjected to a little bit more full sun or high direct light, which is where I have my plants of this nature in the container gardening. So you can actually give it a little bit more like a southern or western exposure. If you take it away from there, and I have not experimented with that, but if I put this in my northeast facing window, I would guess that it would somehow become a little bit more leggy. I don't know how the internodes would look if this was not getting the appropriate amount of light, but I would imagine that the stems would start to elongate a little bit. But it might actually not look so bad because it does kind of have that kind of gnarly kind of look to begin with. Now, as far as fertilizing goes, you could just do a regular succulent fertilizer, and like I had mentioned, I'm growing this in a container with other succulents, so you kind of have to just play it by ear because you can't just pick and choose and fertilize one way and another the other way, so because they're all in the same container. So I'll do like a 2-4-7 or a 3-4-7, and I'll often do it just like on a monthly basis, and that usually is pretty good. So succulents and cacti, I never used to always fertilize them, so then I met Richard the cacti guy, and he's like, no, you have to fertilize them. So I do, but you'll find that some of these actually grow in really poor conditions to begin with, so the fact that they get a little bit of nutrients is like, woohoo, really exciting for them. So yeah, so something on a monthly basis, like a 2-4-7 or 3-4-7 is actually good. And if you could get them a little bit of a grittier substrate, then that's great. Otherwise, it's a very cool succulent plant. Like I said, one great for containers, and if you have the ability to do a rock garden outside in the appropriate climate, then I would look into this one as well.